Hey, here with a live, very unexpected. Again, I don't normally do live streams. As anyone who follows this channel or still understand, I'm no longer a content creator. I don't do videos. I don't make videos, and I certainly don't put out live streams. But I thought I'd try something a little different. The last and only live stream that's going to remain on this channel that was made it was made a long time ago. It's about getting off of YouTube. Why you should get off YouTube and why that works. It's the only one that I recommend. It's the only one that I promote on this channel. Um, and so I was thinking about this today. Time on my hands, and I was thinking, why not do something like for people who want to be on YouTube, even though I don't recommend being on YouTube. Why not do something about people who want to be on YouTube? So I decided to do this. It's called YouTube A Survivor's Guide. And I was a content creator for over a year. So in the year, just over a year, there was a content creator. Um, I sort of learned some of the ins and outs of being on YouTube. Actually, I'd kind of learned that before I became content creator. Um, so I thought, since there are people who want to be on YouTube, they want to be doing content, want to be doing this, I'll kind of do this survivor's guide, which is the experience that I kind of gained creating content, and then before that, just going on YouTube, visiting some panels, visiting some chats, and what I observed. So I and this is actually, I guess it's kind of a coming together of something I did when I was a content creator. I used to have a show about YouTube. I forget what it was called. My own show. I forgot what it was called. But yeah, I used to do a series about YouTube and talking about different aspects of YouTube for people. So this, of course, is called YouTube: A Survivor's Guide. So if you want to be on YouTube, there's my live stream here, and that live stream is called "Why You Shouldn't Be on YouTube." Now, I'm somebody who doesn't really think most people should be on YouTube. I think you should be on social media if you need to be. You should be on whatever other outlets that work for you. But if you're gonna be on YouTube, I might as well do a survivor's guide. At least from my perspective. Again, this is coming from someone who was a content creator, and granted for a brief time. I only did it for over a year, but who was around, who visited YouTube. I was around sort of. I saw some channels because I was on panels and I was in chats for a little while. For about, well, I was, I think, for about a year before I became a content creator. So, all right. So let's begin with this survivor's guide. Again, my recommendation just before I go into this, my video that's on this channel is called "Why You Shouldn't Be on YouTube and Why That Works." So that's the video that or that's the live stream that I recommend to people in general, right? Because I'm against most people being on YouTube. I just am. Um, and you can find out why I'm against most people being on YouTube by looking at that channel, right? Hello to those in the chat, those who happen to be in the chat. So let's begin with this survivor's guide. Number one, when we talk about YouTube, say say you're interested in being on YouTube, right? You want to set up a channel. What's the first thing that you should do? Is the first thing you should do set up the channel and go through the motions of setting up the channel? No. This is the first thing that you should do if you're thinking of being on YouTube. If you haven't already watched YouTube, go go on YouTube and start watching channels. These could be channels you're interested in. These could be channels you're not interested in. These could be channels that you intentionally select. These could be channels you select at random. These could be channels you like. These could be channels you dislike. It doesn't matter. It could be all of those things. What you want to do is get a broad sampling of channels. And here's the important part. What you're looking at is not content. In other words, you're not watching a sports channel for the sports. If you're interested in setting up a YouTube channel, you're not interested in watching somebody's channel where they have panels. That's not what you're interested in doing. You're not simply watching it for the panel. What you're there to watch is how the owner of the channel and the people on the panel, if they have panels, how the owner of the channel, number one, behaves, and if they have panels, how the people on those panels behave. How do the people conduct themselves? How do they talk? How do they talk to each other? How do they deal with each other? This is important because depending on the kind of place or space or area of YouTube that you're in, if you're going to be a part of that, or in general, what you need to know is what the pitfalls are. Because one of the things that I would probably tell people is that what you have are what I call YouTube tactics, right? YouTube strategies, YouTube tactics. And what will happen, depending on what kind of channel you have and what's on your channel, is at some point your channel, depending on what you're about or who you deal with, and who you deal with is important. You have to look at how those people are. And most importantly, you have to look at how those people deal with anything that's negative. So number one, you deal with behavior. But number two, you're going to deal with any negativity. If it's in the content section, look at that. If you're seeing reaction videos and you're looking at how other people are reacting, people who don't like them, people who maybe not so much don't like them, but don't like the content or whatever. So number one, you look at their behavior. Number two, you look at the way others deal with them and how they are dealt with. Are these individuals always in fights? This is what I call fights, slights, and gripes. Are these individuals involved in fights, slights, and gripes? If they're not, how do these, then you can get into the content itself. How they do the content, what the content is about, what the quality or lack of quality content is. But what you want to focus on are how the individuals conduct themselves and how others react to them. Do they react in a positive way? Or do they react in a negative way? Or is there a mix of both? That's very important because then when you see what happens, you will, when you make your channel, you will then be prepared in the sense that you understand that certain things can happen. You should also, when you're going to deal with YouTube, you should also look at what kind of content are you going to do. Not simply what kind of content that you're going to do, but what is your angle? What is your take? What is your hook on the content? If you're an automotive guy, and you just want to talk about cars, that's great. But why should we come to the 590th channel on YouTube about cars as opposed to 589 others? What is it about your channel that's different. And when I say different, what is your angle? What is your point of view? What is your hook? How are you talking about whatever you're talking about? So, if you're going to do content, simply doing content is vague. Oh, I want to talk about, if you say, I want to talk about movies, because this channel used to be a TV and movie channel, right? Uh, that's vague. There are probably 1,000 TV channels. There are probably 10,000 movie channels, right? What this channel did was look at TV and movies and looked at them in an analytical way. Not that there isn't analytical channels out there, but it looked at it in a certain analytical way. That's what made it different. Now, did I have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of subscribers? No. But we're talking about content. So if you're going to do content, it's not simply what content that you do, it's how are you going to talk about it? Right? What is your hook? What is your point of view? What's your angle? That's what you have to keep in mind. So, number one, you have to look at how people behave on channels and on panels on YouTube. That means that you can deal with potential pitfalls. Number two, okay, content. Not simply what your content is, but how are you going to do it? How are you going to present it? What's your angle? What's your point of view? What's your hook? A third aspect is, if you're going to do content and be a content creator, do you actually are you interested in the content that you're doing? This gets into your status as a person. And this is why in my video on, or in my live stream on why you shouldn't be on YouTube, I say there are only a few people that should be on YouTube, right? If you're a professional, if you own a business, if you have a major hobby, if you're somebody with a specific kind of job or skill, or you have some interest, or you have some vague interest that would be of interest to people. Those are the people that should be on YouTube, because they're people that have something to offer, not simply something to offer to an audience. Again, what I said about content, right? It's not simply a matter of content, but they're people that at least have something, some reason to be on YouTube. If you have a business, you have a reason to be on YouTube. If you're a doctor, lawyer, art, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, you have a reason to be on YouTube. And so that third part is your content mean you have a reason to be on YouTube? Yeah, you have the angle. You may have, I want to do this content. But do you have a reason to be on YouTube as per your content? Your content, I look at it this way. Your content and your character should be informing each other. I'll put it another way. Your content and your status should be informing each other. Because character is a loaded word. Some people have character, others don't. So, and some people act like characters on YouTube. Goes back to what I was saying about watching YouTube channels before you start one, right? So you can see who the characters are and how people act. But who you are informs what you do on YouTube. And this is what people don't understand. They do not understand this. They don't get it. They completely do not get it. And this is fascinating. This is why I always recommend that people who have those 5 categories that I mentioned to you go and do YouTube channels. And other people who don't. If you're just a guy who works at 7-Eleven, unless you're a manager of a 7-Eleven and you want to, or an owner of a 7-Eleven and you want a YouTube channel about how to run a 7-Eleven or a convenience store, for the most part, I wouldn't recommend being on YouTube. Why? Because your status and your channel have nothing to do with each other, right? At the end of the day, your channel is a reflection of you. And so you're going to be judged on who you are as a person by what you put on your channel. The problem that I see with a lot of people is they seem to think that what they do outside of YouTube has no bearing on YouTube. That's the biggest fallacy that these people can do. I have an official channel. I'm a writer. I have an official channel with writer in the name, right? So what is my status? My status is as a writer. And if you look at the content, what remains of the content, because I don't do content anymore there, I do promotion and marketing there. But what I do there is related to who I am as a writer. If your channel isn't related to who you are as an individual, primarily as a working individual, there are going to be problems. Right? That gets into professionalism. So, and that gets into another aspect. If you're going to be a professional in whatever job that you're in whatever trade or vocation or whatever it is that you're doing, you have to be careful. If you've got a job that requires a code of conduct, then as I mentioned before about looking at people in terms of behavior, your behavior should be just as good on YouTube as it is outside of YouTube. YouTube is not a place to misbehave. So if you got a job that requires a code of conduct or even has written into the contract or written into various to the work aspects, social media and online writer or clause, you best read that and you best fly right by that. Because if you're not doing that, you're going to lose your job if you get on YouTube and you start misbehaving. I'll cite an example. It's called X now, but it used to be called Twitter. Hi to Mulatto Vanguard. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. He was talking about my writing platform. And again, that goes to the point, right? What I said earlier about what I was saying about your status, right? I have a channel that is an official channel with what I do in the name, right? This doesn't. But it doesn't matter because I observe a way of operating on YouTube that is similar to how I operate outside of YouTube. And that's one of the things that I would recommend to anybody who is on YouTube. So that's why I brought that up, right? So we mentioned watching content first, right? You gotta be important. You gotta watch the content first. Then when you decide the content, what hook, what angle are you gonna do? Then you look at your status as a person in relation to the channel, right? Remember what I told you. You can find that in my live stream about, let me see, my live stream about not being on YouTube. The 4 or 5 categories of people who I think should be on YouTube, right? So your status as a person, your job status, your business status, your employment status. You have to consider that when it comes to your channel, right? We've already gone over those three, right? And now let's go with the last thing in regards to a survivor's guide. Last couple of things. Number one, not number one, but it's number four really. Don't get personal. That's my recommendation. Don't get personal. And this is from the movie Roadhouse. Be nice until it's time not to be nice. Now, if you've seen the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, may he rest in peace, you know that he gives a speech in Roadhouse where he talks to the bouncers in the bar and he says, be nice. Right? So what he's saying to these individuals is, your behavior as employees of this bar should be tempered. So not only tempered, you treat people in a decent way, right? The patrons of the bar, be nice. Until it's time not to be nice. So if these guys get rough with you, call you names, try to get in your face a little, don't get in their face and start calling them names. Wait to see what happens, and when they get out of hand, you make sure they're out of the bar. That's essentially what he's saying to them. So what I'm saying to you is, when it comes to YouTube, be nice until it's time not to be nice. One of the things that I've done, one of the things one of the ways that I kind of move on and conduct myself on YouTube is I ignore people who want to fight, much like Roadhouse, right? The rowdy types. Excuse me. I ignore the rowdy types on YouTube. I ignore people who basically just want conflict. Because for some people, conflict is content and content is conflict. It's sad. The reality is, no matter how well you deal with conflict, it'll never be content. And the more conflict you have, the less content you'll be. So keep that in mind. Now, it may depend on where you are on YouTube, what kind of other content creators you deal with. That's very important. Select the content creators that you go on panels and you go on channels, and the people that you also may do collaborations with very carefully, or carefully enough. Don't get involved with people of ill repute and who are ill-tempered and who possess an ill mind. Be careful about that. Because remember what I had said earlier. Your channel is related to who you are as a person. It's not separated from that. So if your channel is known for, if you're known as a content creator for trying to pick fights and get in trouble with people on YouTube, your channel will be seen as a troublesome channel, whether people tell you that or not. So you have to be very careful about the people that you deal with and the people you're involved with. If you're going to collaborate with other content creators, make sure if you're productive, make sure these are productive people. If you're going to be on panels with people, make sure these are people that, as the old saying goes, you wouldn't mind having a beer with, right? Or I don't drink. So in my case, it would be, what? More like soda. More like a Pepsi. I'm a teetotaler. So That's what you have to keep in mind. You're judged by the company. Your channel is judged by the company it keeps. Now, simply going on a panel doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's what your relationship is or your dealings are with other people. If you go out of your way to deal with people who are not involved in the same things that you are, or other people are involved with you and you're not somebody that's reputable or good or whatever, then it's not good, right? Simply going on a panel or going on a panel a couple of times in and of itself isn't the end of the world because you can't always know people. That's why I say watching content is important, right? It gives you an idea of who's who. Keep in mind, this is the survival guide, right? It is not how to set up your YouTube channel. There are tutorials for that. I'm dealing with the stuff that you're probably not going to get anywhere else, right? Keep in mind that that's important. Keep your business to yourself. Don't get personal. In other words, don't discuss your personal life. Don't discuss your family life. Don't discuss your married life. Don't discuss, and if you're going to discuss your dating life, do so in general terms, right? Now, why am I talking about all this? Because this is what I've seen thrown at people. What happens is you get into a conversation, you deal with somebody, right? You're on a panel and you deal with somebody. You may even have collaborated with them. And this person is going to take what you tell them and try to use it against you. They're going to try to attack you. They're going to try to smear you. They're going to try to character assassinate or vilify you. I've seen this done with people. And if people don't do that, what they'll do is lie about you. Now, in the case of lying, that's not as bad. And people always say, well, it's bad, but you got to fight it. You got to fight those lies. But keep in mind, don't get personal. Don't discuss your life with people. If you're going to discuss your life, discuss the public side of your life. Like I said, all the things I mentioned to you, your family, your marriage, your personal life. If you're going to discuss dating, because there are dating shows and dating stuff, do it in general terms, right? Also, your job, your business, your financial. These are no-go zones, right? If you want to talk about your job, fine. If your job is relevant to your channel, that's what I'm saying. If you're a professional and your YouTube channel reflects your professional and you're dealing with professional manners, it's a different story. But generally speaking, anything that can, and this is what I've said to people on YouTube, anything that can and will be used against you in the court of public opinion on YouTube, right? Anything can and will be used against you in the court of public opinion on YouTube. So that's what you have to keep in mind. Don't get personal. The final thing is, if you're going to do content, it has to be content that you're interested in. If you're doing content that other people are interested in, or you think is hot, or you think will get you viewers, or you think will get you subscribers, or you think will get you somewhere, you're not going to be happy. And you're going to be spending time on YouTube. So that's what you got to understand. You got to understand all that. So let's go over some of what I mentioned before. What you have to look at is, number one, check out different YouTube channels, panels, various content. Check it out for how the people conduct themselves. The people on panels if they're panels. The people who are conducting the panels if they're hosts. The people on channels without panels. Look at the way they act. Look at the way they behave. Look at the way they carry themselves. Look at the way they run their channel. That's important. Number two, make sure that you're somebody who has a reason, have a reason for being on YouTube, right? Does your content reflect your status? What's your status? Are you a professional? You have a business? You've got a hobby, major hobby? You got a specific job? Does your channel reflect your status? And does your status, is your status reflected in your channel? Number three, what is your point of view in regards to content? You want to do content? What's your point of view? What's your hook? What is your angle? Simply saying you want to do content doesn't really mean anything. Also, number four, be very careful about the people that you deal with. Be very careful. Be careful of the people you collaborate with, the people that you go on panels extensively with, or come on your panel extensively with if you have a panel, or that you deal with in some way, or that sometimes they'll wind up in your chats. Be very careful about that. And the last thing that you want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure that you're doing something that you're interested in, that you like. If you're doing something you don't like, it's not going to work. And that's been about 5 or so tips for the YouTube survival guide. Again, I don't put out live streams. I don't put out content. I don't do content or anything. But I might actually do this. I might, for once, actually put this out as a live stream. So I might actually do this. The last thing that I'll say is this. I ignore, like I said before, I want to repeat something I had said. When people are interested in getting into it with me or fighting or whatever it is, or trying to deal with me in that context, I don't deal with them. Part of it is I don't have an active content created channel anymore. This channel's defunct. So I don't have an active content creator. So I have nothing to lose. But the difference is the way that I conduct things is different. Excuse me. The way that I conduct myself is different. Right. So you don't want to wind up a person who is engaged in things. Actually, it's not so much a repeat, but it's a combination of things. It's sort of a new point. Don't wind up as somebody who gets distracted by everything else. You don't like what this person said in your chat. You feel you have to go after them. You don't like what this person said on a panel, on your panel. You you can get rid of them, but you don't like what this person said elsewhere. Or you don't like, this person doesn't like you and they're trying to fight with you, they're trying to argue with you, they're trying to go after you. Don't get distracted. Focus. Be disciplined. Do the content that you want to do and get everything else out of the way. There are all cliches about this. Be in the zone, be centered, whatever it is, whatever it takes. Get rid of the naysayers and the critic, not so much the naysayers and the critics, and more importantly, those who want to fight you, and focus on those who want to listen to you, those who want to sometimes learn from you, or if not, just hear what you have to say and are interested in what your experience is as a professional, as a business person, as somebody with a hobby, as somebody who has a specific job. That's what you should focus on. When I did this channel, I did movies and TV shows. I did my analysis. That's what I was focused on. I didn't focus on what people were saying about me. Sometimes I would do a random live. You would get a special live and address it. But it didn't take away. And so that was a device that allowed me to go and deal with the content I wanted to do. So I didn't have to spend my time on people that were trying to criticize my channel or trying to knock my channel or trying to knock me. I focused on my content. So I always had time for my content. Part of that also was the fact that I didn't spend a lot of time on YouTube, and this may be something that people don't want to hear. I kept my lives usually about 30 minutes. This is slightly over 30 minutes, but this is around the area that I would do it. So that's what I did. So I recommend to people, if you're doing something, don't do more than an hour. If you're doing videos, don't do more than an hour. If you're doing live streams, probably don't do more than an hour. If it takes you 2 hours to deal with something on a live stream, do it, but make the 2 hours to count. Again, what's important? Don't be distracted. Don't let the naysayers and the critics and the fools and the rubes and all those other people distract you. Focus. Make your content, get the content out there, move on to the next thing, which is more content. Make YouTube work for you. All right. And that's YouTube A Survivor's Guide. I think I might put this out. Even though I don't put out content, I think it's only fair I should put it out. All right. Thanks for watching. I would say until next time, but there won't be a next time. Bye, folks.